And thanks for joining us for our mid-morning edition of Arirang News. I'm Mark Broom. Let's kick things off with a look at the day's headlines. The South Korean government is trying to get a handle on the unfolding General Motors crisis. This after the US auto giants announced aggressive cost-cutting measures which would see it sharply scale back operations in South Korea. GM says it needs Seoul's help to maintain a presence here. South Korea's women speed skaters win gold in 3,000-meter short track relay at the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics to the delight of the host nation. South Korea remains in 9th in the medal standings. Plus, in war-ravaged Syria, pro-Assad forces enter a Kurdish enclave, spurring an immediate response from Turkish forces already besieging the region. We begin this morning with the economic and political fallout from General Motors' decision to essentially up sticks from Korea. Sources with direct knowledge of the matter say GM has offered a deal to the South Korean government in exchange for financial support and tax benefits from Seoul. Park So-yeon starts us off.
GM has proposed to the South Korean government a $2.2 billion debt-to-equity swap for GM Korea in exchange for government support worth up to $1 billion. With that came another offer. The U.S. automaker will invest to develop new models in Korea as part of its plan to fix its problems here. Following a meeting with a task force headed by Korea's ruling party on Tuesday, the president of GM's international operations said the new models would be produced at 3 GM Korea factories around the country, and GM would eventually look to produce 500,000 cars annually. The offers have been made, but nothing has been decided, with South Korean government officials saying it's too early to push for any financial backing, as it wants to conduct due diligence before committing to any support. The restructuring proposal comes just a week after GM announced it would shut down one of its plants in the western port city of Gunsan by May and consider whether to continue operations at its 3 other plants in Korea. At the same time, GM's call for financial support from the Korean government is raising some eyebrows, as the company recently announced plans to invest $265 million in its Kansas plant. Critics say it's a sign GM is falling in line with President Trump's policy of putting America and American workers first, especially as Seoul and Washington are locked in high-stakes negotiations over a possible amendment of their bilateral free trade agreement. However, GM insists the ongoing FTA talks have not shaped any of their plans or announcements. Park So-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, President Moon Jaein has ordered the government to designate the western city of Gunsan as a crisis zone for industry and employment, following GM's announcement that it would shut down its production plant there.
Upon presidential orders, the Labor Ministry has decided to take emergency steps to name the Gunsan region as an employment crisis area.
The spokesman added, although the current situation does not fully meet the criteria to be given such status, the administration is willing to revise the existing regulations to make it possible. Designated crisis zones become eligible for special government subsidies like low-interest loans and financial support for those laid off. President Moon expressed concerns over GM's decision, as Gunsan employs 2,000 of the US carmaker's 16,000-strong workforce in South Korea, with 1 out of 5 people in the city dependent on GM for their livelihood. So it really is all hands on deck, with Korea's political and economic forces working pretty much in tandem to try and cope with GM's pull-out decision. However, Seoul's trade minister has reaffirmed that the government cannot give financial support to GM Korea unless it conducts its business more transparently and commits to fresh investment in the nation. Kim Ji-yeon with more.
In a briefing held Monday, the Minister of Trade, Industry and Energy, Bae Kung-gyu, said GM Korea should submit a long-term proposal to improve transparency of its business management in the country. emphasizing that the company should show its commitment to normalize its business prior to asking the government for support. The minister added that any funds provided to the carmaker would originate only within WTO regulation and with the purpose of preventing the shutdown of GM Korea's Gunsan plant, one of 4 assembly plants the company has in the country. Peg also denied accusations that the government had made promises to provide monetary support when it required the automaker to submit a proposal. He also said he understands that as a profit-seeking business entity, the automaker could ultimately decide to pull out of the country, resulting in an undesirable impact on the local job market. Considering such risks, Peg said the government is willing to work with the automaker to improve the situation. One of the ways GM Korea could stay in business is for the automaker to announce Korea as a production allocation of its new crossover vehicle model, instead of other locations such as Mexico. Peg says the option may not become a deal breaker just yet, since the company seems to experience difficulties in making a final decision that is dependent on the outcome of NAFTA renegotiation talks. If the automaker decides to start making the model in its plants in Bupyeong and Changwon, it's expected to be able to produce about 500,000 units annually. That could help them avoid the same fate of the Gunsan plant, which is to shut down in May, leading to massive loss of workforce of around 2,000 people. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Kim Mo-gyun from the News Center, here with the latest on the Pyeongchang Winter Olympic Games. Let's first take a look at the highlights from Tuesday's action. It was a golden day 11 of the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics for South Korea. The host nation won its 4th gold on Tuesday night in the women's 3,000-meter short track relay event. The 4-member team of Choi Min-jung, Shim Seok-hee, Kim Ha-rang, and Kim Ye-jin finished the 27-lap race in 4 minutes, 7.361 seconds. The gold medal finish also gave Choi Min-jung her 2nd gold at this year's Winter Games. With China disqualified and Canada penalized, Italy won the silver and the Netherlands were bumped up to bronze. The Netherlands stole a bit of South Korea's thunder by setting a new world record in their B final. In curling, the South Korean women's team defeated world number 7 U.S. on Tuesday, making them the first team to qualify for the semifinals. Team Korea won 9-6 in the round-robin preliminaries at the Gangneung Curling Center. The team has won 6 out of its 7 games, beating the very best, including world number 1 Canada, world number 2 Switzerland, and world number 4 Great Britain. They have just started their round-robin session against the Olympic athletes from Russia. South Korea is currently up 9-1 to Olympic athletes from Russia. Over in speed skating, Team Korea will look to continue its medal blitz in speed skating tonight, this time in the men's team pursuit event. Having notched the best time in the quarterfinals, Team Korea, led by veteran Lee Seung-hoon, who won silver in team pursuit in Sochi 4 years ago, will race New Zealand as they bid to make tonight's final. In the women's competition, after failing to qualify for the semifinals, South Korea will compete in the D final, raising Poland just before 9 p.m. Korea time. Now let's take a closer look at what's ahead of us on day 12. The short program for women's figure skating singles has just kicked off. Korea's rising stars Choi Da-bin and Kim Ha-neul are taking part in the event, hoping to follow the footsteps of figure skating legend Kim Yeon-ah. On schedule this evening is the women's curling match between South Korea and Denmark. As I mentioned, South Korea has already made it to the semifinals, which will take place on Friday. The semifinals for the men's team pursuit is set for around 8:30 p.m. South Korea is looking forward to a smooth race with the eyes of the nation fixed on 15,000-meter bronze medalist Kim Min-seok and veteran speed skater Lee Seung-hoon. If they make it to the finals, Korea could be in the gold medal hunt shortly after 10:15. Now let's wrap up by taking a look at the current medal standings. We will have more updates for you throughout the day, so stay tuned. I'll be back again in our next newscast.
So, as we just heard from our Kim Mok-yeon there, South Korea's women's curling team is doing really well, and they're winning a lot of fans both here and around the world. They have sealed their spot in the Final Four, making them the first Korean curling team, male or female, to ever qualify for an Olympic semi-final. The now famous four are playing athletes from Russia as we speak and are beating them handily. But their qualification out of the round robin is already assured, as we've been reporting. For more on what's behind their surprise success, Won Jung-hwan reports.
10 countries have been facing each other in the round-robin competition to enter the semi-final rounds. And South Korea's female curling team on Tuesday achieved its sixth victory by beating the US and securing the first spot in the semi-final rounds at Pyeongchang, despite still having 2 more games ahead on Wednesday against the Olympic athletes from Russia and Denmark. The Olympic host team has racked up a near-perfect run of victories over Canada, Switzerland, and Great Britain, 3 of the world's 4 great powers in curling, while also beating Sweden, which had been undefeated during these games. Team Korea has certainly surprised many curling fans, rising to global fame as one of the underdog stories of these Winter Olympics. So how did South Korea, which ranked 8th globally, build a phenomenal women's curling team in a country that has zero tradition nor experience in this discipline?
Before the Olympics, the team went through intensive trainings. In addition to advanced data analysis and strategic planning, they've become more disciplined and very well prepared.
The team had previously stated that the experience the team built by facing top contenders before Pyeongchang contributed tremendously in increasing the team's overall confidence.
It was good to learn and prepare for the technical aspects of the game, but we also learned about control and pressure, something that is learned only by competing.
But according to an expert, there's more than meets the eyes.
Most of the team members come from a similar background in terms of education and region, so they easily bonded together as a team. That, I believe, has been a crucial factor that helped them thrive and show their best.
Meanwhile, South Korea's male curling team on Tuesday secured its 3rd victory at Pyeongchang Winter Olympics in a match against Switzerland, but still fell short of moving on to the semifinals. Won Jung-hwan, Arirang News.
Now, could the two Koreas team up once again to host another global sporting event? North Korea's IOC representative says, why not? Especially after giving the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics 2 big thumbs up. Ji Myung-gil fills us in on the possible scenario if South Korea wins its bid to host the Asian Winter Games in 2021.
The North Korean representative on the International Olympic Committee, Chang Ung, said Tuesday that it is possible for the two Koreas to jointly hold the 2021 Asian Winter Games. According to Seoul-based Yonhap news agency, Chang made the remarks in Beijing on his way back to North Korea, after suddenly leaving Pyeongchang last Sunday for health reasons. Chang mentioned that if that happens, the Masikryong ski resort on the outskirts of North Korea's east coast city of Wonsan could be used as one of the competition venues for 2021 Asian Winter Games. Chang made the remarks after the governor of South Korea's Gangwon-do province, Choi Moon-sun, said last Saturday that he is considering a proposal to co-host the 2021 Asian Winter Games with North Korea to strengthen ties between the two Koreas. Gangwon-do province is the host province of the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. Experts on North Korea say Choi's proposal could have been inspired by the two Koreas having a unified women's ice hockey team for the Pyeongchang Winter Games, as well as the North participation in the Games through cheerleading, art performances, and taekwondo demonstrations. And when Yonhap News Agency reporters in Beijing asked Chang for his assessment of the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, he said he would give the Olympics a perfect score, as it provided a chance to demonstrate harmony among all Korean people. The Asian Winter Games is an international multi-sport event held every 4 years for members of the Olympic Council of Asia. The host of the 2021 event will be decided at the 2018 Asian Summer Games in Indonesia in August. 지명규, Arirang News.
A summit meeting was held on Tuesday between President Moon Jaein and his visiting counterpart from Slovenia. This happened at Seoul's top office. The Liberal leader also sat down with Russian athletes to provide them with some encouragement as they are not able to compete under their country's flag at the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics because of the highly publicized doping scandal that hit Russia. Hwang Oh-jun with the details.
South Korean President Moon Jae-in greeted his Slovenian counterpart, President Borut Pahor, at the Blue House on Tuesday, where they held a summit meeting. It was the first visit by a Slovenian president to South Korea since the two countries established diplomatic relations in 1992. During the meeting, President Moon expressed his gratitude for President Pahor's visit during the Pyeongchang Winter Olympic Games and praised how the two countries have increased their trade by more than 20-fold in the past 10 years.
그간 한국과 슬로베니아가 상호 우정과 신뢰 그리고 또 공동의 가치를 기반으로 화해적 협력 관계를 발전시켜 온 것을 아주 만족스럽게 생각합니다.
The two leaders agreed to enhance cooperation in various areas, including logistics, noting that Korean companies are already using Slovenia's southwestern city of Koper as a gateway for shipments to Central and Eastern Europe. They also agreed to exempt their respective nationals working in the other's country from having to pay into local social security programs. Rather, those contributions will be counted toward equivalent programs back in their home countries. In addition, Presidents Moon and Pahor shared their views on boosting global efforts to denuclearize North Korea. The Slovenian president said he admires President Moon's efforts to peacefully resolve the nuclear issue and expressed his desire to help achieve that.
I would like to see much more involvement of the European Union in this very, very important security and political issue that everybody is watching now. I think we could be of some more help as we are at the moment.
Shortly after the luncheon meeting, President Moon invited delegates representing the Olympic athletes from Russia to the Blue House as an act of encouragement. Russian athletes are competing in Pyeongchang as individuals after their national team was banned over a state-sponsored doping scandal. President Moon said he is grateful that Russia sent a large number of athletes despite the situation. The Russian representatives delivered an invitation from President Vladimir Putin for President Moon to visit Russia for football's World Cup later this year. Hwang Oh-jun, Arirang News.
South Korea has put pen to paper on a bilateral currency swap agreement with Switzerland. The Bank of Korea says its governor, Lee Ju-yeol, and the chairman of the Swiss National Bank, Thomas Jordan, formally signed the $10.6 billion agreement in Zurich on Tuesday. The three-year deal will allow Korean won and Swiss franc to be purchased and repurchased between the two central banks up to the $10.6 billion limit. The two banking chiefs expressed hope to further intensify bilateral cooperation in various other sectors through the deal. Experts say the agreement with Switzerland will help stabilize South Korea's financial market and raise its global credibility. After nearly 3 years of negotiations, South Korea has officially signed its free trade agreement with 5 Central American countries. Seoul's trade minister says the trade pact with Costa Rica, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua and Panama will help create a comprehensive strategic partnership with Central American nations. South Korea is the first Asian country to sign a trade deal with that region. It's expected to boost two-way exchanges in goods and services to help South Korean companies advance into that up-and-coming region. The deal will go into force after the National Assembly approves it. Now for a look at stories making headlines around the world, and we start in Syria. Pro-government forces have entered a Kurdish enclave, sparking resistance from Turkish forces currently besieging that region. A Syrian offensive against the rebel-held region of eastern Ghouta has also left more than 100 people dead. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Noah Aram. So Aram, the conflict in Syria keeps on escalating. What exactly is the latest?
Well-marked troops loyal to the Syrian government were met with Turkish artillery fire on Tuesday as they tried to help the Kurdish YPG militia repel what they called the Turkish aggression. Turkish news channels showed armoured vehicles plastered with Syrian flags entering Afrin, where Turkish troops entered about a month ago to oust the YPG, which it sees as terrorists. The Turkish military said the shots were of a warning nature and forced the pro-regime troops to retreat. The YPG thanked the pro-Syria troops for what it called the call of duty. Ankara had warned the pro-government forces of serious consequences if it entered Afrin to support the YPG. The battle is raising prospects of direct conflict between Syria and Turkey in the civil war. Elsewhere, meanwhile, a Syrian government offensive backed by Russian and Iranian allies in eastern Ghouta has now claimed well over 100 civilian lives. The last major rebel-held stronghold has been bombarded with airstrikes and artillery fire since Sunday in what is being described as the deadliest Syrian assault in years. State media had reported that the government was retaliating to an attack by rebel forces on districts in Damascus, adding that there were few civilians living in eastern Ghouta. Violence in the region has been on the rise recently, threatening to bring down months of diplomatic efforts among Russia, Turkey and Iran to de-escalate the conflict. Residents claim the Syrian regime is targeting civilians and infrastructure to force them to give up their territory, as it has done in previous battles across the country. The Parliament in the Maldives has approved a 30-day extension of a state of emergency declared by President Abdullah Yameen earlier this month. The declaration was seen as Yameen's attempt to strengthen his power after the Supreme Court ordered the release of his imprisoned political opponents. The regulations give wide powers to security forces to detain people and curtail freedom to protest. The declaration had sparked global concerns about the impact on democracy. Opposition lawmakers who boycotted parliamentary proceedings called Tuesday's vote unconstitutional. Hollywood power couple George and Amal Clooney are donating $500,000 to support surviving students of last week's shooting at a Florida high school that left 17 dead. The money will go to next month's March for Our Lives demonstration, which will call for tougher gun control. The Clooney said they were inspired by the young people of Stoneman Douglas High School, adding that they will be joining them in the March on Washington. Other celebrities, including Lady Gaga, have also pledged their support on social media.
Good morning. Dress warmly on your way out. It's colder than yesterday, and daily highs will also be a tad lower than yesterday as well. But we have better air quality under mostly sunny skies, while the dry air is sticking around. In taking a closer look at today's afternoon highs, Seoul will only make it to 4 degrees Celsius, while other major cities will also have single-digit afternoon highs, getting up to 6 degrees in Daegu, Daejeon, and Gwangju this afternoon. But the cold weather will not last long, as temperatures will jump back up to above the seasonal averages tomorrow. But a mix of light snow and rain is in the forecast on early Friday morning, but that's not going to help much to ease the dryness in the air. Pyeongchang is also waking up to a bitterly cold morning, but highs will be bearable along with good air quality. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all the news we have for now. Our next bulletin is coming up at noon Korea time. So until then, goodbye.
In search of timeless and priceless heritage in Korea. Time Priceless, World Heritage in Korea, Gyeongju Historic Areas. An ancient Arabic text describes Shilla as the edge of the world. The Silk Road and all trade routes over land and sea from Europe to Shilla